The death toll from back-to-back hurricanes here in the U.S., Helene and Milton, now stands at more than 230. And the economic impact of the devastation could reach more than $55 billion. But what about the emotional and psychological costs? The effects of loss and trauma could last a lifetime. Our next guest has some innovative programs that are making a difference in the lives of people in crisis. She's Dr. Trina Clayeaux, the CEO of Give an Hour, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing free mental health services to underserved communities. Dr. Clayeaux, many of the people of Appalachia devastated by the hurricanes are in crisis. I'm sure even before the hurricanes, most were underserved by mental health professionals. So tell us how they can overcome their emotional trauma in a different way than traditional clinical approaches.
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing light to this important and topical conversation. A lot of our approach, while we're very invested in traditional clinical care, we also understand that there's a large segment of the population that, for a variety of reasons, clinical care isn't what they're looking for, doesn't meet their needs, and so we really also look at that community-based care, the peer-to-peer work. Individuals who already have a lived experience and how important it is to be able to share that experience, or people who want to learn more about mental health and their ability to upskill their conversations around mental health and well-being.
Well, tell us more about the peer-to-peer mental health model. It sounds fascinating and it's effective.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is really effective. I mean, most of us are really familiar with clinical care, but as you know, there's just not enough mental health professionals to serve the greater needs. And for many communities, it's not the right kind of care for them, at least at that moment. And so peer support or peer-to-peer care is really about the ability to be in community with someone who's gone through a traumatic experience, whether you had a shared experience similar to them, or you're more of a bystander and a friend or a colleague, and you want to know, how do I support this person who feels like they are, they've had this traumatic experience or having this really strong emotional response.
Now, I'm sure Give an Hour has its critics, especially from mental health professionals who would say peer-to-peer and ambassadors don't have the extensive training needed to help people cope in the long term. How do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, we actually have a tremendous network of mental health professionals, of licensed professionals across the country who dedicate or give an hour of mental health support. But I think they also understand and are huge champions of peer support because it addresses that non-clinical need. And for so many of us, we need someone who can affirm our experiences or to be with us in a moment of crisis, where mental health professional is often helping us overcome maybe a particular issue or challenge that we're having in our life and can help us with another perspective. But peer-to-peer work is researched. It's really supportive that it works. And we found, that the traditional peer-to-peer that so many people know about is like Alcoholics Anonymous. That's a peer-to-peer model of support. And so it has a place and a space in the mental health continuum. And I think it's incredibly important for all of us to know we have a role to play.
Well, I know you're in North Carolina, and I'm sure that would be very helpful and beneficial to people in the mountains who are underserved anyway, and also maybe reluctant to go to a clinical health professional. So I'm sure many people there, and you've seen it, are going through a lot of suffering, the loss of family members and other situations there, a loss of property. I mean, there's still 90 people missing from these two hurricanes. So what difference are you making there? How are you helping?
Yeah, well, I think it's always important to also understand right now, so many people are in that early stage of just basic needs. There's so much cleanup happening. There's people who are, as you said, that are still missing. And so right now generally isn't the time when a lot of folks are seeking, who are directly impacted or seeking mental health support. But that peer support that they're getting, just even in this moment of having the National Guard there, of having, the New York Fire Department is there, having neighbors and people from the community and people outside the community who are supporting them. That is kind of a form of peer support, is that really those connections. And it's so much about human connection. And that's what I love about, is that we all are able to do that. I think what you're going to see in the weeks and months from now is when people start really feeling the effects of what just happened when you move from survival mode into really understanding what they call like the second wave. And that's where you may really start to notice difficulty sleeping, hard time concentrating, emotions being triggered throughout a day that maybe didn't have an actual stimuli coming with it. And so I think that's when we tend to see that. So sometimes it's 6 to 9 months out from an event. And then usually we're going into that 1 year anniversary is where we really see people seeking help. So we always encourage people to do as much upstream as possible. But we also know that there's a rhythm to these traumatic experiences.
Okay, quickly then, how can people find out more?
Yeah. Well, for peer support, there's a variety of options for peer support. I mean, Give an Hour is a resource. We've done a lot of work on traumatic events and recovery from it. What I also want to encourage people, if you are in distress at the time, is 988 continues to be a wonderful resource and helps you get locally connected. And then SAMHSA also has a distress hotline that's specific for disasters and called Talk With Us. So those are just different resources to look for. But I think really the big ones is that we have an option for people to become wellness ambassadors or peer supporters. And that's really for those friends and families and colleagues and people who are wanting to step into that space and know how they can help another one.
Okay, Dr. Trina Clayeaux, the CEO of Give an Hour. Thank you for providing insights about Give an Hour's innovative approach to mental health care. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.